Listen close because I'm going to ask you something that might hit you where it hurts. What would you do if the first real laugh your child let out in months came from a barefoot stranger who wasn't supposed to be in your yard? And what if that stranger was a homeless kid who slipped past your gate like he'd been sent by fate? Would you call security? Or would you let the moment breathe? My name is Richard Lawson. People used to call me the Golden Touch oil real estate shipping. Everything I put my hands on turned into more. More deals, more headlines, more distance from anything that felt soft. And then life reminded me there are rooms money can't open, and silences money can't fill, my wife. Elizabeth gone in an instant. My 8-year-old daughter Amanda in a wheelchair, and the house that used to ring with her laughter turned so quiet, you could hear your own doubts walking across the marble. You know what I mean? You try to fix it. Like you fix everything else, you wire money. You fly to specialists. You collect complicated words from doctors who look kind but tired, and you come home with brochures and hope that keeps slipping through your fingers like water. I did all of that. I flew us to India for surgery, to Germany for therapy, to the US for whatever new treatment people whispered about online first-class seats and second-class results. We landed back in Lagos, back to Banana Island, back to a garden that used to be a playground and now felt like a museum. Amanda sat by the window in her chair, small and still, a shadow of the girl who used to chase butterflies and shout nonsense songs into the sky just to hear the echo answer her back. Then, one hot afternoon, when the air stuck to the skin and the hedge threw crooked shadows across the lawn, I heard something I hadn't heard in months. Not a miracle, not a choir, just the smallest ripple of a giggle sneaking under my office door. I stepped onto the balcony, and there he was, a skinny kid with road dust on his calves and a shirt torn at the shoulder, moving like a wind-up toy with too much heart and not enough balance. His steps were exaggerated and ridiculous. On purpose, his arms swung like noodles. He pretended to trip and catch himself. He rolled in the grass like it was a stage and the sky was a spotlight. It wasn't polished, it wasn't professional. It was joyful, and my daughter, the child I had flown across continents for, clapped, then laughed, then clapped again, and the air in my home changed shape. I felt it like a door cracking open inside my chest. My first instinct, I won't lie, was to shout, to call the guards, to protect the lines between our world and the world outside the gate. That's what people expect from a man like me, right? But something in me said, wait, just wait. And I hid behind a marble pillar like a thief in my own house, and I watched. The kid would tell me later, his name was Cola, not like the drink exactly, but close enough to remember he'd slept wherever the city forgot to lock its doors. Under the bridge when luck wasn't kind behind a kiosk. When the wind had teeth, he danced. When hunger felt like a hand on his throat. Because moving made the weight lighter. He didn't come to take anything. He came to give something small, his words not mine. And the way he said them cut through me like truth usually does, simple, sharp, undeniable. He slipped through our hedge again the next day, quick, quiet, hopeful. And this time I met him before he could start. I saw fear flash across his face, that street instinct. Run first, ask later. Then Amanda spoke. Daddy, please don't send him away, please. It wasn't a whine, it was a plea from a place deeper than fear, the kind a parent recognizes instantly, the kind that says, this matters. So I asked him his name, asked why he came, and he said it without dressing it up. I saw she was sad. I thought maybe if I danced, she would laugh. I don't want anything. I can leave after. We made a deal. You can stay for today. Open space where I can see you. No misbehavior. Understand? He nodded, like he'd just been handed a crown, turned to my daughter, and whispered, showtime. And the garden turned into a stage again. Pattern interrupt. A flicker, a muscle twitch. Almost nothing but everything as he danced, and she laughed. I watched her back straighten a little, her hands clap harder than they had in months. I watched her toes shift inside those small white shoes she always wants to wear. The kind of movement only a parent notices when your heart has learned to be a detective for hope. One day turned into three. 3 into a week. I told the guards without ceremony, let him in at 4. He leaves at 6. He eats before he goes. I didn't announce it. Didn't post it. Didn't even say it to the entire staff. Because the magic felt fragile, like breath on glass. At 4 o'clock, the gate clicked. A shadow slipped along the hedge. And there he was, with a new routine, imitating a police siren, with his mouth acting out arguments between Danfo drivers and conductors spinning into the grass and bowing like a king for a queen. And my queen responded. Her voice started to color back in. Do it again. No. The one from yesterday. Try the robot. But slower, she spun her chair a little, then a little more. We went to a routine hospital check, and the doctor said something that stuck to my ribs. Engagement can spark recovery pathways. We don't always know why, but when the brain wants to move, the body remembers how. Keep it going. Keep it. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. It was an ordinary afternoon. A cheap radio somewhere was playing an old high-life tune. The hedge threw soft shadows across the lawn. Kola was doing his slow-motion bit like time itself had thickened. Amanda laughed so hard she forgot to hold the blanket that usually covers her legs. Wait, she said. Let me try something. She placed her hands on the armrests, face tightening with effort. Shoulders rose, chest lifted. Her hips came off the seat. An inch, then 2. She held it for 1 count, then 2. I found myself saying 3, before she sank back, panting and smiling. With tears standing bright in her eyes, the whole garden went quiet, not the heavy quiet we'd lived with. A reverent quiet, the kind that happens after you see something holy, and you don't want to scare it away then. Kola shouted, "You did it, champ, you did it!" Dropped to his knees in front of her, like he was kneeling before a queen. I touched her forehead and said the only word that made sense, brave. That night I walked the hallway. I always avoided the one where the echo taught me how much I could lose and still be standing. And I told the truth to the only person who needed to hear it. Maybe wealth isn't the highest power. Maybe kindness is. Maybe joy is a medicine. We don't prescribe because we can't control it. You know what I mean? Pride masquerades as image, as reputation, as composure. It'll make you a giant in boardrooms and a coward in your own living room. I didn't want to be that man anymore. The next day, I asked Kola to sit with me instead of dance. Tell me about yourself, I said. Nobody had ever asked for his story like it mattered, so he told it like a person used to handing out small pieces of himself and hoping the listener won't throw them away. Mother gone, father gone, market women who used to help, until he got too old to be cute, sleeping where the city sighed and gave up. Why do you dance? I asked, he said. Because when you're hungry, your body gets heavy. If you stay still, hunger wins. If you move, you feel lighter. People laugh. Sometimes they give you coins. Sometimes they don't. But at least you're not invisible. Invisible. That word sat between us like a bridge I'd never had to cross. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Not here, not anymore." Now here's the twist. And this is where my story flips. All this time, I thought I was trying to heal my daughter, and I was, but I didn't see the other surgery happening, quietly under my ribs. I was being healed too. The cold parts of me were thawing. The parts that worshipped efficiency and outcomes were getting out of the way for something softer and stronger. You might think that's sentimental. But listen, when your child smiles again after months of silence, you start measuring success with a different ruler. Another afternoon, sun low, the city painting itself gold. Amanda claps and says out loud, "I want to try standing." I tensed up, fear and faith went to war in my chest. But I nodded. She set her hands, arms shaking, face set like steel wrapped around sunlight. Pushed, and slowly, she rose, not tall, not steady, but up her feet pressed into the ground, like they were meeting an old friend. After a long fight, the guards at the gate froze, the housemaids gasped. Kola spun in a circle and dropped. "You're standing." "Amanda." "You're standing," and her laughter broke open. Something in me that had been sealed too long, Daddy. "Did you see me?" I stood. I told her the only truth that mattered. I saw. And I've never been prouder. That night, I found Kola sitting on the back steps, arms wrapped around his knees like he was trying to make himself small enough to vanish. "If someone changed their mind, you shouldn't be out here alone," I said. He shrugged. "I'm used to it." "Not anymore," I told him. And I meant it, like a promise you can write a life on. "This is your home now. You'll eat 3 meals a day, you'll go to school, you'll sleep in a bed, and never again have to wonder which roof will tolerate you for a night." He tried to thank me, voice shaking, and I said, "What had been true from the first laugh you gave my daughter. What no doctor could give hope, anyone who gives hope isn't just worth knowing, they're worth loving. If it were you, what would you have done? Would you have opened your gate or would you have guarded your image? Do you think that's fair? That a child has to entertain somebody powerful to be seen? News travels faster than truth. The story slipped out of our walls and grew legs. The papers printed versions that made some people cheer and others sneer. Millionaire Lawson adopts street child city, divided, my phone lit up with the kind of concern that wears a suit, partners taking me aside. A street boy in your mansion, what if he steals? What if he disgraces you? Think of your image there. It was again the altar that keeps asking for more, more, until you're giving it your soul dressed up as common sense. I said what I had to say. My daughter is standing again. My daughter is smiling again. That's the only image I care about, if that offends you. Then we were never partners in anything that matters. It wasn't a speech. It was a line in the sand. Boundaries. Make people show themselves, and the ones who stayed. They understood. Inside, our home life became life again. Mornings started with Amanda calling for cola before breakfast, afternoons filled with ridiculous routines, him doing that low-battery robot, her trying to copy it, and laughing so hard she forgot she was supposed to be careful. Evenings ended with shared meals, where she teased me for smiling more than I used to, and where I learned that laughter is a kind of seasoning on food. You didn't know you were missing. Therapy stopped. Feeling like court started feeling like practice for a team that liked each other. Small steps stretched into longer ones. The chair sat by the sofa while she tested her balance with one hand on the back. Some days were setbacks, and that's okay. Courage isn't a straight line. It's a circle. You visit the same fears with better tools. I changed too in quiet ways that loud men never brag about. I stopped saying later to the things that were obviously now. I started paying attention. Not the heavy attention that tries to fix everything, the soft kind that makes people feel safe enough to try. I learned leadership at my own dinner table, guiding, teaching, protecting, and yes, laughing at jokes that barely qualify as jokes, because making the people you love feel bigger is part of the job. Now the ending. And I know some of you are waiting to see if I turn this into a neat bow you can clap for and move on. I won't, because real life never signs off that cleanly. One evening, the sun poured itself across the garden. Amanda took careful steps, Cola's hand looped with hers. He was whispering encouragement like a steady drumbeat. I stood there and thought. I used to believe I had everything, but I had nothing. Until I met this boy, wealth is useful. It builds roofs and buys medicine. But true wealth is hearing your child's laugh come home after it got lost. True wealth is watching courage pass from one heart to another, like a candle lighting a candle without losing any flame. Pattern interrupt. It wasn't all smooth. We had mornings when fear sat on the edge of the bed and refused to move. We had afternoons when the wheels felt heavier and the steps shorter. But setbacks don't erase miracles, they make them honest. If you're in the middle of your own heavy chapter, hear me. Progress is rarely cinematic. It's a hand reaching for another hand. It's a laugh you didn't expect. It's an inch that turns into two. So here's the part that might start an argument in the comments. And maybe it should a child like Kola have to tumble into a millionaire's garden to become visible? Should safety depend on proximity to wealth? Should adoption or family be the price of admission to a world where you get 3 meals and a bed? Or should our cities, our systems, our neighbors have caught him long before I did? Where do you stand on that? Do you think that's fair? I know where I land. But I want to hear you because this story isn't just mine, it's a mirror. For Amanda, this was never charity. It was friendship. One afternoon, she looked at him, squeezed his hand, and said, "Now I'm not alone, I have a brother." I laughed, but inside my chest, something settled into place. This isn't a project. This isn't a press release. This is family, messy, loud, real. If it were you at that gate with your child's first laugh in months floating through the heat like a bird you haven't seen since winter, would you open the door? Would you let a stranger change your life? Or would you call the guards and watch the moment die politely for the sake of your image? Be honest, because your answer says more about our world than any headline ever will. One last thought before I let you go. When I replay this story, it's not the standing or the headlines that owns me. It's the very first giggle, that small, unguarded sound that cut through months of quiet and said, "I'm still here." Maybe that's the whole lesson. Don't wait for a grand sign or a perfect plan. Pay attention to the small laugh, the small yes, the small movement. Start there. You might be surprised how far a single inch can travel when hope puts its shoulder behind it. All right, your turn now. Tell me where you're watching from and who gave you hope when you needed it. Tell me if you think I did the right thing, or if I lost my mind. Letting a street kid into a house that used to run on velvet ropes and silence drop your take, argue with me, push back, or tell me a time kindness blindsided you and changed your map. Somebody scrolling at 2 a.m. might need your candle more than you know. If this story made you feel something, a smile, a sting, a stubborn drop of faith you thought you'd misplaced, hit like so. More people stumble onto it. Subscribe if you want more true stories told like this. Not perfect, just honest, and stick around. Because the next chapter, yours or mine, might start with something as small and unstoppable as a laugh.